We use variance as our guiding principle, the movements, the stimulus, the movements, the stimulus, how it's scored, constant rotation. We pay very close attention to that. And then we write the workouts based on those things. So there's nothing new or fancy to report when it comes to that. And I don't think you would want there to be anything new or fancy when it comes to reporting.
You can do CrossFit. You're going to get fitter doing fitness.
Don't get fit.
Don't get fit doing fitness.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad in the house.
Cheer.
Sort of feels like I'm saying this every episode now. It's that
Because
time
the
of
full
year.
Squad is in the house. Oh.
No. Thanks for interrupting me, Hunter. That this is a special edition podcast today where we are going to be covering the Comp Block 2 programming. If you're new to the podcast, sort of in general, you'll notice that, I don't know, roughly every 7 to 10 weeks, there'll be a podcast that says something like Comp Block 1, Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. And what we do is sort of dig into the nitty gritty behind the programming, how we program, the way we think about things, and apply it to the next block of programming. So April 4th, Comp Block 2 starts at misfitathletics.com. And I mean, honestly, part of it, yeah, we are here to sell people on it, but we're also here to inform, you know, the people that already follow the program and the people that want to know what it is that we do and what makes it different. I guess there's sort of a backstory to this also as well, where Comp Block 2 came from. Our old way of doing things was to have things like semifinals prep and games prep completely separate from MFT and Hatchet. And there were several complaints from the athletes preparing for semifinals, preparing for the games, sanctionals, regionals, whatever we want to call them. They complained that not having the community behind them and not being able to compare scores, and also not wanting to have to go to their training partners in the gym and say, no, don't do what they're having you guys do. Have what they're having me do. So sort of as an experiment, Comp Block 3, I believe, was the first time that we did it. And maybe it's even the year before, but we basically had games prep where athletes would go in and choose a la carte how to do their programming. The feedback that we got was that it was the funnest block of programming that we had ever done. Part of that might have to do with the fact that the actual programming itself was something that they found fun, but more likely it had to do with the fact that they got to go in and pick from such a wide range of things. And not only did we see that, but we saw better results going into Phase 1 with athletes than we did before. And I mean, part of that could be mental, part of it could be burnout, part of it could be a whole different list of things. So Comp Block 2 and Comp Block 3, you are following along no matter what with the people that are preparing, and you get to go in and like really dig in and personalize this time of year, which is also kind of fun, especially for us up in New England, because once we get to open the bay doors and, you know, you might be more inclined to choose, I don't know. You might be more inclined to choose like a long, nasty bitch work piece versus exactly be in the sun versus if this type of programming was there in January and you were like, I'm going to do some deadlift singles today.
Yeah, I think one of the things that separated us early on was a little bit of that like kind of choose your own adventure programming way back when it was, you know, Ted built the website and it was like a WordPress like black screen with like A through like F on it, and that was a fun time because people really did get a chance to kind of pick around. And then as we evolved the programming, we were like, all right, we need to make sure these kind of boxes are checked, and we got to the point where now we were telling you what to do every single time that you were going in to train. And then we got to the situation you were just describing where like, all right, everyone trains together for 80% of the year, and then 20% you're just going to be like almost two different communities. And one of the things I think that separates us from other programs is the community tie. Like everybody kind of sees what everyone else is doing and they're like kind of rooting for their fellow misfits. And it just felt like anti of our message. Like this community thing is really big, and we wanted to make sure that we were like allowing the people who aren't quite at the level they want to be yet to still be doing the things we think was appropriate for them, while making sure that other sector of the community was getting what they needed to kind of prep or peak for their competition. And bringing them back together was a really big difference maker for the community at large. Because again, like you said, it's fun to drag the machines outside, maybe push some sleds, climb the pegboard, do things you don't do for most of the year. And it also allows those athletes who are maybe a couple years away from being where they want to be to kind of see where they stack up currently and see kind of where that gap lies. And maybe they're closer than they think they are, and that encourages them to push a little bit harder to make that leap. Or you're a few years away and you're like, all right, a reality check. I need to drop down to the Hatchet or Masters program because it's more appropriate for where I am in my journey. And that kind of served as a checkpoint for a lot of athletes to say, all right, here's where I am and here's the roadmap to get there. And for right now, I need to be on this program so that I can kind of make the proper leap from being the, Masters Hatchet or teenage athlete to getting to where I want to be, competing in Madison.
And what else is kind of cool is that, so Comp Block 2 is inherently semifinals prep, and a lot of folks listening are not going to semifinals. But what's cool is that there's still kind of a peaking structure that enables a, non-qualified athlete. Maybe you're like a quarterfinals athlete getting ready to, or I guess by the time this is published, have just finished quarterfinals. You're not moving on to a semifinal, but you have that as like a long-term goal. Maybe it's next year, maybe it's the year after. You can train as if you are going to semifinals by either choosing to follow along with like one of the weeks of the semifinal, which I think we'll get into kind of the structure here of the phase in a minute. And basically see what it's like, because the peaking schedule for our semifinals athletes is not just like beat your head into the wall until your semifinal. There's a pretty structured way that we've put it together. And that just enables athletes who maybe they're not competing at a semifinal to get a feel for how that's supposed to work. And then you can take that and apply it to, an out of season competition, or just, again, get a feel for what it's like to prepare for that level of competition.
Yeah. And there's something to the idea that, let's say an athlete wanted to go to the CrossFit Games and did not want to participate in the sport until they were fit enough to go to the CrossFit Games. And they just went round and round every year following a programming, trying to get to that place. We know athletes that have taken certain periods of time off or have gone through the motions in certain parts of the season. And there's something really special about participating, not only in as far as you can make it, but I suggest athletes participate in another step completely beyond that. So I think an athlete who has serious ambitions for semifinals should be following a bit more of a personalized, but a peaking schedule like we're going to have here. And I think they should do the semifinals workouts. I think they should pick where they would have wanted to go, or whatever fits their social schedule, whatever it is, and really like have your gym rally around you and create a bit of a semifinal there.
It's a hard thing to do, to put yourself out there and say, I'm going to try to compete at a semifinal, and say that aloud so that other people know this thing, as opposed to like having it like hidden away in a journal somewhere, like I want to go compete there. And I think that you should give yourself the opportunity to peak, like you just said, for this season. Test the workout, but like make sure you kind of like make it known this is like where you are right now. Because again, in order to be able to do that at the highest level, like you don't get to hide in the shadows of the CrossFit Games and do the CrossFit Games workouts off to the side. You have to do them in front of a bunch of people, and that is a skill, being able to perform when there are eyes on you, and when you have that like extra layer of accountability, because you've asked someone to judge you, you've asked someone to video you, you've asked someone to coach you, and you have your support staff around you. That does take another level that the competitors are comfortable doing. And if you aren't there yet, you need to start working your way there. And this is a great opportunity for you to kind of essentially, preseason practice that type of commitment and that willingness to be vulnerable. Because again, you need to be able to do that to compete in our sport at the highest level.
If future you were to qualify at a semifinal, why would you not want to take the opportunity now to get used to what you're going to experience leading up to your semifinal? And it's the same argument I have with people who are just like, I was just answering a question on Discord today that was just like, I'm not going to sign up for quarterfinals. Like, I'll still do the workouts for fun. And that's
did you respond to that?
I did. Yeah.
It was on my list.
You can go in there and see. I assume it would have been a pretty similar response, but it's like, so you want to be a semifinals athlete, but you're not going to do any of what a semifinals athlete needs to do to get there. Like, there's, again, whole rabbit hole there. But if that's your goal, practice it.
Right.
And then when you get into semifinals next year, like the fact that you're doing 6 or 7 training pieces in a day isn't going to come as a shock or surprise to your system.
Yeah, for sure. So the way that the structure works in specifics is you log into the website, the app, whatever, and you'll see at the top MFT. So it's basically MFT means any athlete that did not qualify for semifinals that should be following the MFT program. It's going to tell you how many pieces to pick. Now, you don't have to pay super close attention to, basically it'll say something like pick 3 from 3 through 6. The only reason that there's a range there is because we are not including morning movement, warm up, and accessory. We're just making sure that people understand that, like, and I mean, obviously if you can't fit it in and you're doing the accessory, that's fine. But basically what we're saying is starting at lift and ending at skill, pick 3 of these pieces to go in and do that. If you qualified for a semifinal, every time you go in, you're going to notice which pieces we believe you should be doing depending on which week you're going. The slight nuance here, and one thing that's a big challenge, but we plan on making a separate channel for semifinals athletes on Discord just to make sure that, sort of the nuance that's really there, people are understanding. So you'll notice that it will tell you in weeks 1 and 2 potentially to rest, to either pick the MFT volume if you're just a nut and can't stay out of the gym. Sherb's laughing. I wonder why.
I don't know. I guess I don't know.
Just goes for a marathon row or
I gotta go 21:59 real quick, guys.
Yeah,
Sorry, I gotta leave.
This podcast is too long. What were we talking about?
If you are like in a week 3 or week 4 semifinal, if you're anticipating going to that, then the first week or 2 potentially after quarterfinals, or I guess what's happening right now, might be hey, congratulations, now chill the fuck out for a little bit.
The asterisk is there are places where you have multiple options of where you're going, and you might not know in time for that. Keep your head and think about what makes the most sense. Because if you look at those weeks where we're telling people to pick 3 at the very beginning of a semifinals athlete's peaking schedule, it's not that much less work than they are doing at the current time.
Yeah, an athlete.
So don't overthink it.
Yeah, an athlete who is getting ready for the nearest semifinal, that volume, or like the week 1 volume, is not that much different from the MFT volume. So you'll be okay if it's you don't hear for
and you've all adopted that mindset of intensity reigns supreme kind of over everything else. So like continue to have that mindset, even though you might be thinking about another stage where you're like, all right, I have to do all these things to prep for these things. You are better off pouring your effort and intensity rather than adding extra pieces until you know a little bit more about your season. Because again, that is always what we talk about at our training camps and we talk about on podcasts constantly. Make that your focus. And again, you might get a little itchy in those first couple of weeks if you're in those later semifinals, but you'll thank yourself later on when you're not dragging ass in the the heat of those like what we call hell weeks leading up to your semifinal because you beat the crap out of yourself in the first couple of weeks.
All right, people who copy our program, get out your pens and pencils. The secret herbs and spices are about to be dropped.
Coca-Cola's famous recipe?
The way that we do our peaking schedule is essentially we start at a lower volume. We go up to a high volume in the middle, then we go back down to a low volume. You got that?
Yeah, I'm putting that in my notes.
The nuance is every single Metcon that you do on the way up is what we call a Metcon reset. Now, on paper, real quick glance, it's going to look like a weird interval, basically. What we are doing as programmers is saying an athlete starts this block and has not peaked all year yet. They are coming into this, I don't know what, I'm thinking of like the chick coming out of the egg. Like... And we're trying to build them into that
metaphorical chick or an actual guy.
And then we are trying to build them into this giant jacked chicken by the end.
Bird,
this is a really good analogy.
Goddamn chicken.
Do you want to be a chicken?
If you're listening to this, you're a chicken. You want to be a jack chicken?
You want to be a jack chicken or a chick? So essentially what we are saying and what we are trying to do is the athlete that gets spit out into semifinals, we want you training at that intensity in week 1. And the way that we do that is we write a workout just like we would write any other workout, and we say, where are athletes going to have to slow down in this in terms of where they're at now versus where we want them to be. Then we place a little bit of rest in there. Can be 30 seconds, a minute, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it is, especially depending on the stimulus that we are trying to chase. This gives us an opportunity to push the envelope on certain stimulus. We know that at the actual semifinal, when you're all ramped up and you've got the adrenaline, that we can turn some pretty gnarly workouts into cardio workouts. We can turn them into fast transitions, staying unbroken but smooth, having some sort of moderating effect like a machine or something like that. We are going to try to create that environment and that feeling and that intensity all the way back in week 1. And we're going to do that 3, 4, 5 times a week, starting in week 1 all the way into week 4. And that's basically it. When we're coming back down the other side, especially for semifinals athletes, this is when that idea of the athlete IQ, the idea of earning your volume, the idea of, all of these different things that we talk about, you got to go in and fine tune. Okay. We use the volume monster essentially only for like a couple of weeks. It's not that long. Especially in week 4. So whatever your peaking week is, that's when we are going to, on purpose, try to beat the shit out of you physically and mentally. And then we come out the other side fitter, a little bit tougher. And that's when we refine. Because if you are just this like volume fiend and you can't go execute on a single workout in a vacuum at semifinals, then you don't reach your potential. So we have to really hammer that point home by saying, we're getting you up here, you're standing up on top of the mountain, and then we're coming back down and we're really focusing. Every single step forward is a focused step. And by the time we get there, not only are we recovered and well rested, but that sort of intensity, whether it's of mind, of body, of skill, whatever it is really fine-tuned.
Yeah, the thing I was going to add is just specifically to the teens program, because one thing about our different age groups and communities that are within Misfit is that they're going to have slightly different schedules based upon when they're, our quarterfinals for teenagers falls in the middle of comp block 2, or in the initial third of comp block 2. And you'll notice that like we build in the ability to follow along with the program. One of the things I think teenagers and the entire community loves is being able to train together. So like, you could have a teenage athlete working beside an MFT athlete, working beside a master's athlete, is making sure that, you're on the same sort of peaking schedule, kind of depending on whether or not your quarterfinal is going to be kind of like your Super Bowl or your semifinal is going to be your Super Bowl. You're going to see a very similar description with how you go through your programming, essentially being a teen athlete or a semifinals level athlete. And you'll notice that like in week 3, for example, you'll have a slight taper ahead of your kind of quarterfinal piece, which is kind of going you from the entire field down to that like top 30, which gets invited to that semifinal. So a very similar effect here for the teenagers as we see with the individuals, just that the schedules, because of the way they're written, are going to have a slightly different schedule. So effectively you are going to do your quarterfinals in week 3 of comp block 2, and you'll be kind of tapering for your online semifinal in week 8. So you'll notice that if you are a teen athlete, you will be following along for most of the same exact amount of volume and kind of ideas that the MFT athletes will be. But in a couple of these weeks, we slightly tweak that just based upon the fact that you will be competing kind of twice within comp block 2, and 2 different online stages.
It's really important also for teens and masters to understand if they're like, wow, this is this great comp block and I don't get to do it because of your schedule and because there is a 4-week spread on the individual schedule. We are looking for you to be able to attack a 7-week program over the course of 10 weeks.
Yes.
So you don't have to feel like you're, getting shortchanged with what everyone else is able to work on during this period of time. You are just going to be working a little bit harder at different times when athletes are tapering at a different time or, anything like that. So, that is one thing that's very different about comp block 2 is it is 10 weeks long because we want to be able to, no matter what weekend you're going, have that 7-week peaking schedule. If you think that you need a 10-week peaking schedule, I can just tell you're wrong right now, but hopefully you can convince yourself that you are capable of dedicating yourself in a totally different way than you ever have before for a 7-week
This
period.
is also a plug to make sure you're kind of following the right program, because one of the questions we saw in Discord, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, someone asked, like, hey, I'm a master's athlete, I follow MFT. How is this going to line up for my, age group, quarterfinal and semifinal? And again, there's nothing wrong with a master's athlete looking at both programs and maybe picking the Metcon and seeing the master's version and the MFT version and being like, all right, like I could probably do the MFT weights at the intensity that we're looking for here. But jumping onto a completely separate different program that's not lined up in your season is going to make for a little bit of a confusing peaking schedule. So again, this is a plug for if you are a master's athlete, if you are a teenage athlete, you need to be following the appropriate program so that you are peaking up at the correct time, as opposed to being like, it feels like I'm doing a lot of volume before my quarterfinal, semifinal. It's like, that's because things have gone a little bit awry here. So again, just a little plug. Again, you're going to get a very similar dose in comp block 2 as you would if you were following masters, teens, or MFT. It's just about where that volume is modulated and when we're trying to get you ready to do either your quarterfinal or semifinal, as opposed to the, MFT athlete who is trying to get ready for weeks either 7, 8, 9, or 10, depending on where they are in the world for their semifinal.
I think since we're on the rabbit hole, can I touch on masters really quickly as well? So masters and hatchet, I guess, kind of applies. So another kind of unique feature about comp block 2 is that masters and teens are accustomed to following a slightly different program. So like in the off-season phases 1 through 4, Metcons don't always line up. A lot of the times the lifting does, but Metcons don't. In comp block 2, most of them do align like day to day. So you will be able to, as a masters athlete who's like, hey, I'm, going masters, but I follow MFT. I'm a 35-year-old master. You will be able to like look cross program and see like, okay, here's the MFT version, here's the masters version. And like you said, maybe meet in the middle a little bit. And in teens, you wrote in such a way that's also very similar, save a couple movements here and there. So really, like, probably for the first time, I don't remember if that's how we did it last year.
It was not like that last year. This
so
is
for the first time we've got really like the entire like spread of programs kind of aligned, with everybody's volume being kind of the difference. So masters are in the same boat. Obviously, you guys have the your online quarterfinal that's also kind of right in the middle of comp block 2, which is a little bit requires a little bit of a workaround, but know that kind of like the way that comp block 1 has ended, like you guys almost got a blend of like the volume kind of peaking and tapering between comp block 1 and comp block 2. So they're not going to beat you up for your, have kind of that taper week for your quarterfinal, and then post quarterfinal, if you've qualified for one of your semifinals, you'll jump into kind of that peaking schedule, whether you're age group 1 or age group 2. And we've kind of, that's how we've modulated the volume for those communities. So everybody's we'll be able to see pretty similar workouts. It's going to be much more a matter of you as the athlete paying attention to how many pieces or which specific pieces we are suggesting that you do.
I jumped into the rabbit hole with both of them and just want to address how to choose what program you're going to do. And this doesn't just apply to the question that you said that someone asked about MFT versus masters. Just put me in the mindset of, we see athletes who, I don't know, you call it the gray area, they live in the upside down, whatever it is. And because they do a lot of volume, typically tend to be able to handle a lot of volume. And when they get put into the machine of a something that's spread out a bit more, a longer competition, an online qualifier, they sort of come out okay in the wash at the end, but they don't crush anything. You know what I mean?
It's like, what's left on the table?
Yeah. And for me, I always want to know, if we had backed down and if we had backed the volume down a little bit and you did warm up and cool down and work on your skills in a vacuum and do all of the things that we ask athletes to do you obliterate one of those workouts, 2 of those workouts, 3 of those workouts? So if you're the type of athlete that's consistently putting in pretty good scores, but not where you want to be, and you continue to just do this over and over year after year, there's a pretty good chance that volume monster has you and you need to take a step back and say, okay, but like if this is my wheelhouse, then why do I end up getting the same score in this one that I do in this one? And that's just someone who's, volumed themselves up to a point where everything just sort of blends together. So I would say if you do find yourself in that spot, now is definitely a time where it's very safe to go in and choose masters, choose teens, choose hatchet over any of the other programs. The weightlifting in this comp block is, I don't know if it's the right word to say that we are prioritizing peaking the Oli lifts, but there is a larger emphasis on the Olympic lifts and hitting a 80, 90, 100% range lift within a Metcon, in a 1-rep max scenario, any of those things. You are cleaning and snatching every single week, and a lot of the time you will snatch and power snatch. You will clean and power clean. You will power clean and front squat to split jerk. So we're really putting a couple more eggs into that basket right now. The good thing is there is a rotation of squatting, pulling, and going overhead that goes on simultaneously at the exact same time. And we've said it before, we'll say it again, we're not going to try to guess whether they're going to have a 1-rep max deadlift or shoulder to overhead or, max front squat again or something to that effect. We are going to put you through the paces of like a true like front squat waves, really heavy session. And then you're going to have front squats where you got to go high rep. And then you're going to have speed front squats. We're going to rotate you through that stuff so that you are ready. The beautiful thing about that, when it's paired with trying to peak the clean and jerk and the snatch, is your leg drive out of the bottom is stronger. Your midline is stronger. Your grip is stronger. So even if we go to semifinals and most of them don't have a super heavy deadlift workout or front squat or whatever it is, those things move the needle potentially as much, if not more, on the Olympic lifts, as long as you're focusing on technique. And that's why you'll notice that there'll be a week of, heavy triple snatch, and then the following week you're back to positional work. And then it's heavy doubles, and then you're back to positional work. So I just think it's important for people to understand that like we do create these updates year after year when we see community-wide changes, but they are subtle.
So one of the things that we've always talked about in the podcast historically too is that one of the best ways to get stronger is by getting fitter and by going through positions, going through heavy lifts, going through high reps, and making sure that we're checking all those boxes of intensity when we train day in and day out. These lifts, while maybe not being peaked in the idea of like I was getting ready to do like a 1-rep max back squat event somewhere, like there you are going to be a better and fitter athlete because you are continuing to train with intensity and focus on your technique while also making sure you're not kind of completely omitting those heavy sessions occasionally so that your body is prepared for like what happens when you hit, a really heavy clean in the middle of a long 20-minute AMRAP.
The other good news with that sort of like rotational thing is that whatever the lift, quote unquote, of a semifinal is, like you will be as well as prepared as you could possibly be to be at least within like, I tell athletes like, hey, if you're within 90% of your 1-rep max on any given day, like you didn't lose any strength. We just need to like, maybe if you had squatted like a little bit before, you would have PR'd or you would have been closer or something like that. So you're not gonna lose strength. Second thing, maybe better news is that is maybe one event. That's one event where it's like, congratulations. We saw it at the Granite Games last year where it's just like, we've talked about this before too. It's like, damn, that 340 snatch was sweet. I'll see you at the bottom of the leaderboard on day 3. And that's what usually happens. So it's like you get the lifting will maintain your strength. But like that is a fraction of what's necessary to be competitive at a semifinal event.
Yeah, very true. Maffetone work is here to stay. If you don't know what Maffetone means, Maffetone Zone 2 aerobic threshold. You're either living under a rock in the Misfit community or are new to the Misfit
pebble,
community.
Maybe.
Yes. Ooh, living under a pebble.
Weird piss off dead.
We are taken to the road, taken to the pavement. You are going to be running every Tuesday on Maffetone, especially if you're a semifinals athlete. I hope that you choose it in your pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, all that good stuff. As an MFT athlete, even if you're a good runner, there's too much to be said about developing supporting musculature to, you know, really work on that, you know, quote unquote cardio muscle and understand what that's like. So,
ain't gonna get less fit doing it. That's for damn
no,
sure.
you're not. And I've tested it out enough on athletes that by our standards wouldn't need it, and it helps too much to stop doing. Like there's a significant difference in essentially taking someone who is going to whoop your ass on a machine, and now you're just like, I'm not even going to come to the gym today. I don't want to lose.
Catching up to do.
Yeah, I don't want to lose by 4 seconds, and like it's actually up to 12 now. So you can think about how that would translate into the other areas. As we progress, you are going to get the opportunity to choose between the C2 bike or the ski erg. All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and save you a little bit of money on our favorite products. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co and use the code word Misfit to save 10% on the best pre-workout and post-workout nutrition in the game. Every single ingredient is put in there because of scientific research. We didn't stop there. We put in the actual amount that moves the needle, I think, and that is what separates Proper Fuel from the rest of the pack. You can apply to be part of the pack, a brand ambassador, by heading to properfuel.co/join the pack.
We're also brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. You can head to sharpentheaxecode.com, use the code word Keala, Keala, to donate 10% and save 10%. Coming right up is our spring cleaning event, and it is on 4/1. And just so you're sure, it is not a joke. It's not an April Fool's joke. Everything site-wide is going to be on discount there, and there is some good stuff in there. This is the time of year where people clean us out, and you want to get in there early so you do not miss out. Again, sharpentheaxecode.com, use the code word Keala, Keala, donate 10%. Save 10%.
And last but not least, we are, of course, brought to you by Misfit Athletics, individual competitor programming, and Team Misfit affiliate programming. You can sign up for one, the other, or both using a 2-week free trial in SugarWOD. MisfitAthletics.com has that free 2-week trial, but both programs kick off a new training phase April 4th, Comp Block 2, as you're listening to right now, and then our affiliate side kicks off our baseline kind of off-season training phases, which is going to be an awesome time. We're looking forward to following that here in Maine. MisfitAthletics.com and TeamMisfit.com, April 4th. Start it up. Back to the show.
Gentlemen, why would someone choose the C2 bike or the ski erg in Maffetone?
I'll start with the ski because I think there's enough crossover between running and C2 biking that it's similar in that the musculature that we're cycling through is the lower half, the ski erg. Probably more anecdotally, just having watched Caroline do that, she attributed the fact that like her muscle ups got significantly better, not only like maximal number, but the amount of time that she needed to rest between big sets of muscle ups, historically a movement that she doesn't care for very much, as if her handstand push-ups weren't already good enough. Just developing the slow twitch musculature in your upper body, which is already inherently more fast twitch, is so useful, especially maybe for someone who is a little bit faster twitch by nature. Just developing the ability to flush waist, to recover a little bit quicker in your upper body. We typically see it more in like the pressing movements.
Yeah. So
if you're pressing,
for me personally, I love strict handstand push-ups, but when I say that, it's like, okay, I can do 35 or 40 in a row.
Tell them how.
Can I? The first time I did 30, I was nude. Listen,
are we gonna gloss over that?
I had to, sorry.
True story. But does it matter if you pass me in round 5 of a 5-round workout that's got 15 in it? Great. You did well in the first 2 rounds. Yep. Gold star. I PR'd my strict handstand push-up set after 3 sets of 15 while doing this. And there was a significant difference in my handstand push-up endurance, like being able to kick back up and go there. And you definitely notice it a lot more in Metcons. Like typically like accessory work, like, yeah, we can create a scenario where you've got the right program and you're doing linear progression, but it doesn't matter as much until that first day when you almost like you're about to kick down and then you're like, wait, why? Like, why am I doing that? So upper body, pressing, pulling, all that good stuff, developing that supporting musculature there is a plus.
There's just so many reps you can accumulate doing that stuff. You're skiing 30 to 35 strokes a minute for 45 minutes. You're getting effectively thousands of reps in your upper body.
We just don't get an opportunity to do that anywhere else.
Because again, your upper body is typically fast twitch and burns out to the point where you can't keep doing that. Yep. Moving on to the C2 bike, one of the things you hear from athletes early on when it comes time to do Maffetone, maybe on the road or maybe even skiing when they're supporting their own musculature, is they really struggle to keep a pace that feels consistent, or they just end up burning out. Like a really common sentiment when you're starting Maffetone isn't like that your breathing's out of control, is that your legs just can't keep up. Like all of a sudden your legs fill with poison and your 90 RPMs quickly turns into 85 RPMs, turns into 80, 75, and so on. So this is an opportunity for an athlete, again, to accumulate reps in the lower body where some of their body mass is supported. So again, they can accumulate lots and lots of reps without that heart rate becoming a huge issue there. And again, effectively teaching your musculature to take the lactic acid that's created through exercise and learning how to metabolize that. And again, turn that into a fuel source. So for me, I'm looking at someone who maybe goes on their long Maffetone run and is like, how am I going to get better at like fitness if I'm running a 10.5 minute mile? Because that's the only way I can get myself.
I'd be pumped if I ran a 10.5 minute mile.
Getting you able to do those runs and have what you would consider a more realistic, or maybe in your mind, a better split. A lot of times just your legs can't keep up with that. So this is a great way to kind of inject one extra session where now you can get your legs caught up so that it's no longer the leg burn that causes you to slow down. But we kind of trade back and forth. The thing we talk about Maffetone is it your lungs or is it your legs? And for a lot of athletes, it's going to be their legs early on. This is a great way to kind of build up some of that resilience in there so that your legs aren't the damning factor when it comes time to be able to stay moving.
The
C2 bike math is one of the biggest game changers that we've had in the entire space. Yeah, so like even if you are running, like you said, I need to put those two things together to move the needle more on the running. Like I have to. It's mandatory for me.
And I have noticed that myself, that for a while I was giving a little grief here because I just did machines and I like machines and I don't like running. But when I started to do them together and kind of in conjunction, I noticed that not only did my biking get better, but my running got better, and they kind of both kind of pushed each other along.
Yep.
And if you're someone that really struggles with that long Maffetone thing and you're going to be doing it every Tuesday running, like this would be a great way to help get more comfortable out there so that those Maffetone sessions on the road feel more effective.
The only other thing I was going to add is on the master's end, the program leverages a good bit of the Maffetone stuff in there, up to like 3 times a week. And I think that's a good idea just from like kind of a, recovery standpoint. Sure. So getting athletes who like might get beaten up by running for 45 minutes. One, C2 bike can be a good alternative if you're particularly beat up, or it's just another way to get kind of a no impact the benefits of the lower body Maffetone stuff without the impact of running, 4 to 6 miles, whatever it is.
And then when we do get into the peaking portion, you get a third choice, and it's just the other one, essentially. So what we're looking for is for you to pick the weakness of the C2 bike or the ski based on whether your upper body or lower body burns out more often. And then when you have that third day of it, you are choosing to do the other one, essentially. We know that we can really, really, really move the needle if an athlete does run, row, or run, bike, ski. There is biased rowing in the bitch work because it doesn't show up here, which will help. You'll have a few more sessions of rowing, and that's partially due to the math, and it's partially due to the fact that fucking thing, that boy moves the needle. Your gray area death zone training on the rower really moves the needle.
You and I were having a conversation about this the other day, that like when we see our athletes kind of peaking at their best. They're in the dog days of like, they pull the rower outside and they're just doing those disgusting intervals because again, for bang for your buck in terms of intensity and all those things, there isn't much better than what is created through the rowing machine. You got that upper body pull, you get the lower body push with the legs. And again, there's just something about staring at a rower screen and just knowing that like where your split is right now or where you need to go. It's not always the same thing when you're out on the road running. And again, running is a very effective way, but there's something about our sport and what happens when you put an athlete on a rower and they're given a task like, all right, you got to go 5 by 40 calories with a 5-minute rest, and we'll see you on the other side.
When you think about what it does to your energy systems, and then the fact that the professional rowers' muscle fibers are larger than any other professional athlete, like, come on, what the fuck else? What are we talking about here?
Freaks.
And also, I mean, Hunter already mentioned it. You've got that, and then you've got the twofer on the Maffetone. You can literally get significantly fitter and recover simultaneously. Yeah. That is a really big deal in the CrossFit space when we're constantly trying to be like, okay, if I put all of the eggs into the lifting basket to start, what's the point of even asking an athlete to go execute on what the actual sport is when it comes to this stuff? So when you're thinking about what trashes your central nervous system, for some of us, it's, the assault bike sprints or, the really rough rowing. For some people, it's more the back squat and the deadlift. Those are things to pay attention to. And I think that can actually help you personalize when you're going through. Might be like, okay, these are my 3 weaknesses, but if I'm 6 feet deep tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to, I'm not really going to be able to get after it. I think Sherb had the perfect segue to the bitch work. This is the second block of programming where I don't give a flying fuck how cute the piece is. It's AMRAP 90 seconds of this, and you rest this amount, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. We've had amazing adoption of this in Comp Block 1. So we've tipped our caps a bunch to people really buying in recently on the website. The amount of people talking about 230 on, 230 off on the ski erg. What did this person hold on this? How the hell did you hold those? How did you hold a, 120, 400 and then go that hard on the bike? Like that's just music to my ears. That way I know that even if, you've almost banked all of this mental training so that when you do go out into the stuff that's a bit more unknown, these crazy combinations that we put together, at least you got it between the ears.
There aren't too many people that I know that are like really, really good on the machine and are really bad at CrossFit. Like, unless they're just movements that you don't have.
Hey, what are you looking at over here for, jerk?
The amount, assuming the other.
These are inside jokes. Don't take any of this seriously.
Assuming all the other things are in order when it comes to like your like mental game, stress, all that sort of thing. Like if you're good on the machine. I assume
you also mean running.
Yes, yeah, okay. Monostructural machine, row, bike, run, and also kind of taking into account.
Shaquille O'Neal might shred on the machine. Oh,
man, I want to see Shaquille O'Neal.
I don't know. I want to see. What's he going to do for 2.5 on, 2.5 off on a ski erg? So
can you imagine?
He just rips the handles off and says sorry and drops them. And
stands up and he pulls the handles halfway up the ceiling.
Yeah, they have to make a new one for him.
Down.
Shit. Yes, I completely agree with that. And to have it translate over, I do still think it is that physical and mental thing. We talked the other day, we had a minute on, minute off rowing in class. And there's something special about I'm not mentally that strong on the rower. It's a huge weakness for me. So I have that like stigma attached to it when I go in. At no point when you're looking at the clock, like it starts to hurt with 20 seconds left. Like, are you really going to stop? But you get 10 full minutes because we did 10 rounds. It's 10 full minutes where you're in a pretty nasty place metabolically. And that can start to move the needle for people again, obviously physically, because getting me to go that hard for 10 minutes, you gotta get out your chemistry set to figure that out. But I do realize on the other end, I did go that hard. So what does that mean about how I attack a 2K or anything like that? And that's a trick that I used to use for beginners that didn't want to go hard, that were remote clients. It's like, watch this. I'm literally just going to take, it's 5 rounds for everybody else. Guess what? It's 10 rounds for you. And they love it. They get great output and it moves the needle there. So, yeah.
It works.
I'm not with that being said, so the way that I've started to look at writing the monostructural conditioning, especially when it comes to we basically got aerobic work, we've got send work. The aerobic work, kind of obvious. We're looking for those sustained paces. We're looking for closer to like your game day paces of how you would attack something long versus Maffetone. On the other end, we're looking for power output. We're looking to raise the ceiling on what you can make the machine say, which a lot of times really is just about going incredibly hard, not that many times. But then there's that middle ground where so much magic can happen and we can really move the needle. And what I do is I pay attention to people's scores, what my athletes are telling me, affiliate members. I look at and I can identify community-wide, why does someone slow down? Why do so many people slow down on this machine before they need to? Why can so many people sprint on this machine and have no middle ground? So I try to identify those things. What I don't want to do in this podcast is put those ideas in anybody's head. What I do want to do is say, I identify those things, and then I'm going to prove to you over the course of the next 7 to 10 weeks that you can accomplish those things. And the way that we do that is, come from the strength background. It's linear progression. I'm pretty damn sure you can hold the pace I'm asking for about 2 minutes, but then in 3 or 4 weeks, it's 2.5 minutes. And I know that you can hold it because you already proved that you can do that. So I'm just like, basically I'm taking these pieces and saying, okay, what happens to an athlete when they go to we had a really good example at Granite Games with what was the piece with the ski erg? Do you remember the exact rep scheme?
I want to say, I'm going to get it wrong now.
3/2 legless.
Yep.
20. Oh, no. I'm sorry.
No,
it was the handstand push-up. Handstand push-up thing. I think it might have been that still.
It's handstand walk, ski,
handstand push-up.
And the idea that you could dominate that workout because quote unquote you like the ski erg, like that to me just sets my brain on fire. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What the hell are we even talking about, right?
Yeah.
And the ski erg is unique depending on what it's paired with, because typically you slow down because it's uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of other machines, like you slow down on the C2 bike because someone's stabbing you in the legs, right? The ski erg oftentimes, especially when it's on its own, is just this like you're lit on fire metabolically. Yeah, exactly. So when I'm looking at something like that, okay, like how do we attack that? And it's just put them back in the same scenario, I do not want athletes to show up at semifinals and hope for a specific machine. I want athletes to show up and hope there are machines, but it doesn't matter which one it is.
Yeah, that goes back to the stimulus thing we were always talking about. Like, we want to be able to create those adaptations for short, medium, long, so that regardless of what's thrown your way, like, you know exactly what it feels like to go, short, medium, long on all those machines, but you don't give a shit because you've been doing all your send work, all your build work, and all of your, longer pieces.
The one thing that I will say, part of the athlete IQ concept is updating your perspective as you get better on the machines. People for years will decide that this workout's a 150 and this one's a 145, this one's a 140, or this one's a 135. And when they get fitter or they get more efficient on a machine, they don't change those things. And those are the types of things where you have to continuously update your perspective. If your Maffetone work is putting you 5 seconds ahead on your C2 bike intervals and the C2 bike pops up in the Metcon, you got to update where you're at.
Hey, I PR'd by 50 pounds. Should I use my old weight for my percentage work or my new weight?
That's the opposite, isn't it? That's the exact opposite. People love to use like, well, I took steroids in middle school and
Grandma
I
was watching this
benched
one time.
850.
Fuck 850.
So update your perspective as you improve on things. That's really important, and you need to do it in practice as well. That's where you're going to get the permission. We can extrapolate this out to something else. Your muscle ups. This workout sets a 3. Well, now it sets a 4. Now it sets a 5. That sort of thing. If you don't reach in the actual practice, it's going to be tough to figure that stuff out. The one thing that I did not mention with the math that's really important is on the blog now, day 4. So your Thursday, when you log in, every single time you log in, on, Wednesday night into Thursday. It's going to show up as an actual MFT number, 2064, whatever it is. And you are going to have your Maffetone work and your flow session built into that. You are going to decide as the athlete, which one of those things do I do today? And which one of those things do I do on Sunday? We do expect athletes to do both, especially at the highest levels. We want to have that flow day on what we would consider like a full rest day. If you want to modify the concept, that's fine. If you want to go for a walk instead and then do yoga, like it's your thing. But we are looking for that session. And on the other day, we are looking for Maffetone. So just something to think about. Normally, we have weekly work posted. Now you will have stuff posted Monday through Saturday only, where Sunday is going to be the day. Okay, whatever I didn't do on Thursday is going to be there.
That Maffetone is also built into like the volume we're looking for athletes to do. So don't log in, see what you would think of as like recovery pieces on Thursday and be like, no, I'm going to take a rest day. Like that's fine. But if you need to make one of those like kind of a full rest to go for a walk sort of day, but understand that Maffetone piece isn't just like we just threw it on there for people to do. That's like part of the volume of your week and your taper and progression towards your semifinal.
Absolutely.
For all programs.
Right.
Okay.
A little bit of an update on the accessory program. Just like the bitch work, when Kenzie originally was writing the accessory work, my instruction to her was make this look more fun than it is, essentially. Rotating EMOMs, AMRAP this, whatever. Abraham hit Jesus with a wiffle ball bat.
Damn. Is that accessory movement?
She has been tasked with, you have a lift, a hold, and a carry every single day. Now, if the accessory seems like it's already built into the program, that will be lopped off. Okay, so if you're, doing the sled work, or if you're doing dumbbell bench or something to that effect within the actual programming, there will probably only be 2 of those 3 things within the accessory. And it's really just one of those things where it's like, okay, we want it to look cute to get buy-in so that people will really start to do their accessory work. And at that point, within that mindset, I think we sacrifice too much in the details of what the program is itself. She has been given more free reign in terms of, I'm looking at today, the specific day, what is going to help either like help us recover, what's going to help build upon something, what's going to help be a true old school strength accessory. You back squat and now you're doing 3x10 lunges or something to that effect. So, again, just another ode to no nonsense and another tip of the cap to people buying into this stuff when we thought we had to essentially sell it to you.
Can we make one more backtrack? Because you did say, the lifting session's kind of following that rotating GPP, but I don't think we talked necessarily about that second column of lifting for those athletes that might be looking for a little bit more. And I think you kind of alluded to it just now, that some of those days you're going to notice that you have, in fact, 2 lifts, where one of them's more of like what you're used to seeing on the website for a lifting session. And then you have another day that's going to be, I guess, strength centric, but not maybe like your traditional like back squat, press, or something like that.
Sure. Yeah. So when you're peaking, a semifinals athlete during their peaking week has 10 lifts. Some of those in that second column could be split jerk or something more traditional that's normally in there. Or it could be, your hefty strength accessories like walking lunges, sled pull forward and backward, different things to that nature. So still in the same vein, in the same concept, everything outside of the Olympic work is very much in a rotation, and that applies to what would be lift number 2 as well. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because we get asked very often, like, should I be on a strength biased program? What's great about Comp Block 2 is you can strength bias without overcorrecting. You can go in and say, I want lift 1, lift 2, the interval, the skill work, or the bitch work and the skill work, whatever it is. You can go in and do that, and you are still following a very well-rounded program that just has a slight tweak of, I want to get a little bit stronger. And the only thing that I'll say with that is, if you want to get stronger and you're doing 95-pound front rack lunges, sorry, That needs to be closer to
That's
100.
it, period.
Needs to be closer to like 195 pounds probably. But just if you're trying to get stronger and treating that as a true second strength piece, give it the same amount of attention that you would a back squat session.
It's not a throwaway.
When it comes to Metcons and intervals, we already covered the Metcon reset, and we use variance as our guiding principle, the movements, the stimulus, the movements, the stimulus, how it's scored, constant rotation. We pay very close attention to that. And then we write the workouts based on those things. So there's nothing new or fancy to report when it comes to that. And I don't think you would want there to be anything new or fancy when it comes to reporting that.
You can do CrossFit. You're going to get fitter doing fitness.
Gonna get fit.
Gonna get fit doing fitness.
Any other comments on teens and masters sort of deviation? I know that you guys covered sort of the nuance there, and we are trying to keep programs in line with each other for, sort of that hive mind, hive strength type thing.
The only thing I would add to the teens program, and again, it's a little bit, I think it's easier for maybe a MFT athlete to kind of figure out whether they're going to be a semifinal athlete versus a MFT athlete, because I've already gone through quarterfinals at this point. You've kind of already set up your season to know if you're A or B. The teenagers is going to be a little bit more difficult because, again, their quarterfinal occurs during Comp Block 2 as well as their semifinals. So, again, this is tough because there will be athletes out there whose ego is like, you know what, I am a semifinal athlete, and they'll want to do the semifinal volume or the semifinal pieces when maybe it's still appropriate to do the quarterfinal pieces or the normal teen program stuff. Again, it's a difficult conversation to have with yourself, but try your best to be honest. And again, there's nothing wrong to aspire and be like, that's where I want to be, so I'm thinking about doing that, but really do take the extra time and maybe, have a conversation with a coach or jump on Discord. And I mean, the teens channel, I think, has one comment. It's just like hello, and I wrote hello back and got no response.
Still echoing.
I got no response back, but like that would be an excellent place if you're curious whether or not which program you should be following.
Teen athletes, if you would like a sponsorship, you should probably develop your Discord channel first.
Yes. So again,
I'm going to dangle the carrot there.
What I want to be able to do there is help you all do that. So if you're on the fence there and you have questions about that, again, that's why we have the Discord channel. And I want you to aspire to kind of check the box that is appropriate for you and where you want to go with the sport. But just, again, take that time to have that conversation with yourself, and if not yourself, with me in Discord. And I'd be happy to help kind of steer you on which track I think is more appropriate for you. Because again, there's nothing wrong with the aspirations of, going to the CrossFit Games, but you need to make sure that you're not trying to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, no, I don't think I really have anything to add with the Masters stuff that hasn't already been said. Just pay attention to the pick instructions. There's kind of there's obviously the two Masters communities with kind of being like the 35 to 54, and then we have the age division modification stuff for the 55 plus crowd. So those are the kind of two categories there. And then on top of that, age group 1 is what you'll see. What you'll see on the site is AG1, age group 1, meaning that first semifinal weekend, and then age group 2, that second semifinal weekend, which are staggered by a week. I think age group 1 is the first weekend, which is with the teens as well, and the second group is the 55 plus categories. So just kind of pay attention to that. Pay attention to the picks, and if you guys like the Masters Discord channels bumping, so just ask us questions if that's not clear about which, who you are within those categories, and therefore what pieces you should be doing. And then the only other thing I wanted to add on is that just to alleviate any confusion, every day the morning movement, whether that's Maffetone or more traditional morning movement, like the 3 to 8 minutes of just wake yourself up, the morning movement, the warm up, and the optional accessory are not part of your picks, right? We are assuming that you are doing all of those, and then your additional choices should be pretty clear, but we're expecting athletes to do those. Obviously, if you have your own kind of warm-up routine, perfectly fine, but if you're skipping the morning movement or skipping the Maffetone that is the morning movement, you're not, that is part of the program. Do it.
Last note on Masters and Teens, if you're on the fence about which program to choose, those are the most successful, historically, Misfit Athletics, CrossFit Games athletes. Guess which programs they follow.
Number of
not
podiums.
MFT, not Hatchet. Final thoughts, Comp Block 2. I mean, you guys can take this anywhere. Comp Block 2, quarterfinals, semifinals, CrossFit Games.
I'm just fucking excited to get started. I cannot wait to get back to the semifinals and meet you all in person and get to see you guys kind of burn it down. That's what I'm most excited about. And it was a lot of fun writing the programming. And one of the things I've talked about, on the podcast before is how much fun it is to like sit basically on the other side of that wall and argue about whether or not 11 or 12 thrusters is the right amount. But like, there's a lot of thought that goes into this, and we really want to make
overheard at Misfit Athletics. Beefy set of 60 double unders.
God damn it.
I can't get attacked in this podcast. That is a beefy set.
I didn't say you said
3
it.
or 4 sets.
600 meters, 60
Easy.
double unders. Listen, I know that's a beefy set of double unders.
Context, Team Misfit.
I don't care what context it is. Yeah.
But again, I'm very excited to see you all burn it down. And I really do think if you adopt this program, you go head first into it, you kind of listen to the podcast, you listen to, your training partners, listen to your body, and you really follow along with the program. We're going to be set up for a really fun and successful season. So looking forward to it.
I'm going to kind of continue off a little bit on the tangent that I was discussing way earlier in the podcast about wanting to be a competitor, wanting to be a semifinals athlete, but choosing not to sign up for quarterfinals because you don't want to spend $50. Spending $50, that's you're not losing $50, you're gaining accountability. And I understand people listening to this have probably already, the quarterfinals are done, but what the point of that was, if you are somebody who's trying to compete at semifinals, whether it's next year, the year after, you have those kind of those aspirations, pick a program, pick a weekend that you would theoretically like to compete at a semifinal, and do the program as if you were doing that. Modify it, of course, accordingly. The Hatchet program will still have kind of a very similar vibe to MFT with kind of the Hatchet level weights, so you can still create a volume kind of peaking schedule as if you were going to that semifinal. I don't remember which one of you said it, but it's a cool idea to, hey, whatever weekend it is, why not do those workouts? Ultimately, like this is what Misfit Athletics programs for. This is the time of year that the program is singularly focused on preparing people for, and it is a program for competitive CrossFitters. And if you are a competitive CrossFitter, you need to be doing the things that a competitive CrossFitter are doing to be successful, whether it's now, a year from now, 2 years from now, etc.
If you are a devout listener of this podcast, you probably remember me bringing up the idea that I was trying to think of a theme for semifinals, and that I was planning on choosing violence. We're not gonna reveal exactly what the theme is.
We kind of did.
You know what? Listen, pal.
He's gonna fight you.
Now Ted's gonna have to start the clip over. Get it together over there.
Ted hasn't been recording audio.
He's about to not record your audio. So you'll remember that I sort of put out to the community, like, I'm feeling angry about this season, and I feel like Misfits, our community, our coaching staff, our athletes, everybody, they're just built a little different. There's something different about what we do. I think the name really fits. I think those are the type of people, athletes, coaches, that gravitate towards the style of, whether it's media or programming that we put out. And then the other hint is that I read all 6 Dune books in 2021. So if you're looking for a hint of what the theme is, it's not sand.
Oh shit, that was my guess. Theme this year, sand.
Yeah. real violent sand collection. So keep your eyes on the athletes' Instagram accounts that qualify for semifinals for a little bit of a preview, and how I feel about this season and what I think is going to happen during this season will be abundantly clear when you see the imagery and some of the words used on the gear and the media that we're putting out.
Done.
Cut!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast, and thank you to our show sponsors. You can head to properfuel.co and use the code word Misfit to save 10% on any and all of your pre-workout, post-workout needs. Also accepting brand ambassador applications right now, properfuel.co/join the pack. We're also brought to you by Sharpen the Axe, sharpentheaxeco.com. Use the code word Keala, Keala. You save 10%. We donate 10% to the Keala Foundation. This is the Comp Block 2 podcast. If you made it this far, there's a pretty damn good chance you're interested in heading to misfitathletics.com or the SugarWOD marketplace for 2 weeks for free to start this bad boy out. Anything to add for Team Misfit?
Team Misfit, baseline training phase 1 kicks off same day, same time. Training phase is only 6 weeks long, so our kind of, we're not going to drag affiliates through 10 weeks of programming. We've 10
weeks of Maffetone.
Either end. That might be, man, you do 10 weeks of Maffetone, you might be listening to the podcast for a different reason, Team Misfit athletes, but no, we'll have another kind of baseline training phase podcast coming out at you, telling you what to expect. We're getting back to the test retest sort of thing. Now that the weather's nice here, we had just assumed that everybody on the planet has the same climate that we do in Maine, so you'll be getting more, maybe slightly more running and getting outside than sled push, stuff like that. But the baseline training phases are always great because we really get back to like the kind of core CrossFit, 5 rounds for time, burpees, row, box jump. Little hint for your baseline one.
What day is that? I gotta miss that one.
On Friday.
TeamMisfit.com or the SugarWOD marketplace. Bam, we did it. We'll see you next week.